Bullet time is a stylistic way of showing that you're in a constructed reality, and that time and space are not the same as, here, us today living our lives. It's slowing down time to such an extent that you really see everything around you as clearly as you possibly could. Bullet time is something that was conceived for The Matrix specifically, but I think it's the byproduct of the directors observing the controls coming into place, and then they ask the right question at the right time. You always know that you're doing something that is groundbreaking. If someone asks something that you go, maybe, if we do some development and get the right minds working on it, and it takes some pretty heavy thinking to get it together. Everything begins with a simulation. All the computer simulation information is the basis of a timing sequence. Each camera has a specific moment in time to fire a frame of film. All that is taking into account the net effect, the total effect of the move. That is a camera coming up to speed, moving at a speed, and coming off a speed. Particular rig, there are 120 cameras and 2 motion picture cameras set up. The rig that we've made can be configured into any shape that you want. The shapes are basically what we compose in our simulations. It can do S-curves, it can do arcs, it can do spirals, it can do anything you want. It's an erector set. The heights of the cameras, where they're pointing at, also from the same simulation. In the middle of that box right there is a motion control laser pointing system that takes an animation file and creates a point on the surface of that cube that tells us where to point the camera. The 2 motion picture cameras are going to be, in this particular shot, running, that's running at 150, that one's running at 120. There are other bullet times where the end camera is a photosonics camera, so we'll be running that at 360. I can choose at will any elapsed real-world time to photograph. That is, if I have a guy falling over, I can choose to capture the whole event in the time that it takes to go around the circle. I could choose to capture only a very brief moment, and that is how we determine what frame rate the cameras eventually wind up.
Y tus tráilers, visita mi canal.
I could shoot the same exact stunt several times over, creating a simulation of 100 frames per second, 500 frames a second, 2,000 frames a second, all with the same camera moving at the same speed and time. I could go forwards in motion with the camera and forwards in time with the event, but then I could also choose to stop the camera abruptly, start moving backwards against itself while the action continues to move forward. I can shoot the move coming from both sides at the same time, crisscrossing over and ending. I can shoot waves, cycles of film that crisscross like waves over the middle. There is a very heavy digital heft to this capture. Not every frame that a camera captures is the only frames that will be seen. There's a lot of a process we call interpolation, which is the creation of frames digitally that are the byproduct of real frames. That is, we analyze what real frames we have, and we can create new frames of moments in between the captured frames to make moves longer and or stretch them out or do time compression effects. There's a lot of work going on in the art form of interpolation, and it needs to be said, because it's not what you see is what you get. It's all baby steps towards something much larger that won't be really commonplace for a few years, but there are people around the world that sort of scratching their heads about a new way to photograph things. And it'll be as revolutionary as when cameras came off sticks and went to a crane. When they came off of cranes and went to Steadicams. We're talking about cameras that are now broken from the subject matter, that are virtual. So that's the next phase. That's what computers have introduced into cinematography.
Where are they?
Tus trailers, visita mi canal.
We had to build a set which was about 18 inches wide, I think, 6 foot deep and about 46 feet high. It was a really odd-shaped set.
Since it was dark on the camera side, the light had to come through the top, and it had to go 4 stories and still hold its intensity without being super bright at the top and being nothing at the bottom. As they get lower, more and more lights come on, so that it looks like it's the same light, but it's actually intensifying enormously.
Go! Physical effects had to build all of this lathe and plaster so it could break away. The stunt guys had to come in there and needed to be able to control the actors, or at least their doubles, in this kind of in a controlled descent mode.
The fight in the bathroom is much scrappier than any of the other fights because it's in a confined space.
We built a very basic flat-edge set, and then Wu-Ping and his team went in there and rehearsed it, and it started off at one size, and eventually it was kind of like half the size, and they just rehearsed in it and figured out what they wanted.
So it was a much more brutal Western-style fight, if you like.
There were a few trouble spots. I have allergies, and it was in a warehouse, and it was really dusty. They kept putting the power dust on us, that white stuff that they covered me with. So I was sneezing uncontrollably.
I remember changing camera angles a little bit. At one stage, we had to change a few little bits of the fight. I had to block a shot from Lawrence.
Hugo's punching Lawrence's fist as he's trying to throw a punch. He steps and punches the punch. And it was very split-second timing. They did it a couple times, and then it was like the third take. Wham! They hit fists, and you heard this like sort of crack, nappled crack. It was just like,
I'm sorry. I thought I'd broken my wrist one day, and it blew up, and so lots of little things like that. It was actually all right in the end.
I think I hit Hugo in the chest at some point.
And I got kicked in the ribs, and both my ribs were cracked. But that was something, again, I didn't discover some way down the track. But it was a kind of dirty, dirty fight.
There's a character who's the woman in the red dress. We took her to set the other day for a fitting, and we're coming down the road, and all the guys on the crew are like falling over and dropping their coffee and ogling this poor girl. And there's a big roller door where they all come out at the end of the day. This guy drives out, sees her standing there, he stops the car. We can see the roller door coming down, and he's sitting in the car just looking at her. The roller door slams into the top of his car. He gets a really big fright, starts to drive forward. The roller door scrapes all the way across his windshield, all the way across the top, cracks his windscreen, and he's so embarrassed he drives off down the road. So we don't know how he's going to explain that to his wife.
Get me the hell out of here!
Got a patch on an old exit, Wabashin Lake.
Help! Need a little help.
Made him do 22 takes of that. What would be the right gesture? Is he looking or is he just waiting to see if the agents are coming?
Cut!
My hands suck. Let's do it again. More? Yeah.
You know, he pays really, really close attention to his physical movements. He's painstakingly serious about getting those things exactly as he wants them.
Less of the hand when it comes up and just goes straight out. Pinky's all out.
That's good.
Stop picking on the pinky.
You always say cut. My job. That's what I get the big bucks for. Saying cuss.
Y tus trailers. Visita mi canal.
Agent Smith starts to develop some very human qualities that ultimately brings him down. And at the same time, Neo starts to develop certain qualities that steel him against Smith, so that their journeys are kind of in opposition to each other, and ultimately Smith, the machine, is destroyed by the human being who's become increasingly sure of himself.
There's more to it than just basically the vanquishing of the foe. Similar journeys, climaxes, and that sort of merging moment.
Well, very early on in training, in fact on day 2, I thought I'd done something to my leg. So we went to see a very good doctor, in fact it was Keanu's doctor, who immediately diagnosed that I had this thing that I couldn't walk, and I had an edema in my bone marrow. And I had an operation and was on crutches for 6 weeks and slowly recuperated and kind of came back into training again.
It's funny because he had the hip and I had the neck. So it became how's the hip and how's the neck.
This isn't a dojo, it's a hospital, it's a trauma.
You're doing it to me. You like that little bit of pain.
No, it was no pain at all.
Was that general?
It was
local?
Spinal.
Spinal, okay.
So I watched the whole thing.
You saw them?
Yeah, I watched the operation.
No! That man is crazy.
Because you can't feel a thing. So it's like someone doing this thing to this leg.
It's not part of
It's
you.
not yours. They were lifting my leg up and I was going, that's my leg, but I can't feel it. And there was a whole thing about what were we going to do? Was I going to be out of the film? Was I going to stay in the film? Were we going to put all the fights back to the end of the shoot? Which is what we eventually did.
This whole training process for us, it was real trauma for our bodies the first time around. And I think that was just Hugo's body's way of responding to it. You know?
Y tus trailers. Visita mi canal.
What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world? This can't be what? Be real? There are fields, Neo. Endless fields where human beings are no longer born. We are grown. For the longest time, I wouldn't believe it. And then I saw the fields with my own eyes. My ship, the Nebuchadnezzar. It's a hovercraft. This is the main deck. This is the core, where we broadcast our pirate signal and hack into the Matrix. Try to relax. This will feel a little weird.
Is that nice?
Neo, you scared the bejesus out of me.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Is that
The Matrix? Yeah.
Set her down right over there.
Tráilers. Visita mi canal.